Reason number 46 to get a Nissan. Features, especially the ones you get with the 2025 Nissan Kicks Play. Integrated Apple CarPlay, a spacious interior, advanced safety features, and more room in your budget. Because it's the most affordable new vehicle in Quebec. Get the 2025 Nissan Kicks Play S from only $22,774, including a $2,600 cash purchase bonus. Visit your Nissan dealer today. Until March 2nd, conditions apply. Details at Nissan.
Welcome back to the Elias Macko Show. Listen, let's just keep you abreast here of this developing story this morning about a police operation in Rosemount. The SPVM just letting us know about these 3 suspicious deaths that happened this morning in Rosemount. Now, a suspect has been arrested. This is the new information coming in from the SPVM. Of course, Montreal police are on site in an active scene here. Bélanger is closed between Viau and 40th Avenue. Okay, so those are the latest details we have about the death of 3 people this morning, and police say they have arrested a suspect. Okay, let's move things along here and get back to our next segment on the Elias Macko Show. You know, on the program yesterday, every Thursday we do our City Hall segment, and we spoke to the City of Montreal. We spoke to the team at Projet Montreal about these damning reports that came out this week in Le Devoir over racism and systemic racism inside of the City of Montreal, and employees for the city saying that not enough is being done here. Now, in June of 2020, the City of Montreal did make a point of recognizing systemic racism. But of course, there are a lot of people saying that not enough has been done. And of course, the opposition at City Hall is calling out the current administration for not making enough efforts on that front. We go now to the mayor of the borough of Saint Laurent, Alain DeSousa, who joins us on the line. Hi, Alain.
Morning, Elias. Thanks for having me on.
So, Alain, you know, I'm so interested in your take here, right? And I never know what to say. Like, do you describe yourself as a person of color, a visible minority, or a racialized person? I don't know what term to use, but how do you describe yourself?
Well, let's just say that when I first got elected, I was the only person who could be deemed a visible minority elected in the Greater Montreal region.
When did you get elected?
I got elected in 1990.
1990.
And since then, for a long time, I still was the only person elected, notwithstanding the changing demographics and diversity in Montreal for years upon years upon years. So I do have a perspective that knows what it's like to be alone, and I can say that I've advocated, I've pushed, I have effectuated changes in my own community when I became mayor to make sure that we can deal with the issues of diversity and representation and how we reflect our community and how we deal with discrimination. So coming from that perspective, clearly the reports that we're seeing emanate this week are just not damning, not just shocking, but shocking to the extent that it demonstrates how spread, how invasive discrimination is within our own institutions. And notwithstanding the words, you have to look at the results. And you know me well enough, I'm somebody who's motivated by results. So I have hammered on this nail for a long time to come. This is not the first time you've heard me speak about it, and I don't think it's the last time you'll hear me speak about it. But when I sit as chair of the Finance Commission, I've questioned our human resource departments on what they're doing. And so that's why I'm tired of having to continually not just defend and on an elected level. I'm glad that elected people are there who are now coming and representing our communities more reflective of what society is here. But at the same time, I guess my heart goes out and I feel for the people who are not in a position of power, people who work there, people who are just trying to go do their job well, strive hard to be a good employee, and who are forced to live in circumstances where either there's fear of reprisals, fear of pushback, or the frustration of having to live in a climate of intolerance. And that's what gets me no end.
So Alain, listen, I mean, we can look at the makeup of City Hall and we can say, wow, look at the progress since you were first elected back in 1990. And then we can talk about the plight of City of Montreal employees. Now, there's a certain, notion of the buck stops here. In your borough, right? Have you had to deal with situations like this? Can you tell us a story about maybe how you've handled issues like this in your borough?
Well, I've worked very hard to change the culture in our borough, and I can say that there's no borough that is, no city that is, can say that, look, they're lily white and they're perfect and they've got an impeccable record. But I do know that what I've worked very hard, that when circumstances arose and when we've had issues in our own communities at the blue-collar level and at other levels, is that we react quickly. We set the tone. We set the culture. The tone comes from on top, from me as mayor and from our council. And we've got an effort made by our staff that when something like this happens, people are listened to, people are believed, people are investigated, because the situation is in due process. You have to give due process, but it's done quickly. It's done with the collaboration and understanding of the union so that they know that we are serious about this matter and that there will be repercussions or sanctions if and when something is found that is not appropriate. And by acting quickly, you do get results because everyone understands that. When somebody is sanctioned for a behavior that is just not acceptable and you take action against them, there is a ripple effect that cascades through the entire organization. And that's something that we've done.
And do you ever have hang-ups, whether it's union intervention and that? Like, is sometimes ending up with the right resolution difficult just because of the nature of how cities are run?
Well, unions have an obligation to defend their members, but unions are not stupid enough to defend the undefendable. And in that sense, they've got a vested interest in making sure that they've got a good climate for their own workers. So if the climate is deteriorating because some idiot or some person who has a certain baggage that he or she is carrying with them, well, let's be very clear. They're not going to get to first base trying to defend something that is just not acceptable. So in that sense, we have had good collaboration with the union staff when we've had to deal with these issues, and thankfully, they've been quick to see the advantages of acting proactively. With
Alain DeSousa, mayor of the borough of Saint Laurent. Alain, let's talk about the whole term systemic racism. Montreal acknowledged this in June of 2020. And, I know a lot of people will say, listen, acknowledging these things doesn't matter. We shouldn't even admit it exists. And then you look at results, right? So I want to ask you, acknowledging these terms, saying that systemic racism exists, is that part of the solution?
Well, it's a first step, but it can't be the only step. And then when we look at the fact that just in the articles that came out this week, that 9 boroughs had examples quite clearly in different circumstances. When we look at Center City Services, and the best example was a fire department that was under the spotlight this week, you know very well that it is quite pervasive. And so the simple recognition is not enough, and we can't be in a state where we are holding hands and singing Kumbaya, saying, okay, we've acknowledged this, aren't we happy campers? No. I do think there's an obligation as an employer, a legal obligation, a moral obligation to make sure that you have a safe environment where your employees can work for the betterment of our communities and to give good services. So you have, yes, training is important. Yes, you can do all the workshops and sessions that you want, but you also have an obligation to act. And just as the same type of action is needed in the private sector, the same type of action is needed quickly in the public sector.
Alain, thanks so much for coming on the show this morning. I do appreciate it.
Thank you again, Alain, and have a good weekend.